Hello and welcome to the National AA Archives Workshop series of instructional videos on archival preservation and conservation. The purpose of these tutorials is to provide some simple techniques that archivists in Alcoholics Anonymous can use to stabilize and preserve our historic documents for future generations. The subject of this video is tape removal and repair. Here are some basic guidelines for all our work. First, do no harm. Borrowed from the medical profession, this simply means we don't do anything that will damage or cause degradation to the materials we are entrusted with. 2. Wash your hands. This is to prevent transfer of oils and dirt to the document. After washing, don't apply moisturizers or other skin products. 3. Make sure your work surface is clean, uncluttered, and free from beverage containers, food, or other potential contaminants that could be spilled or transferred to the work materials. 4. If you're unsure how to do something, ask for help. Get some additional training and practice on non-archival materials. As it says in the Big Book, we realize we know only a little. 5. Don't do anything that can't be undone later. We use water-based repair materials when necessary so they can be easily removed at a later time, and for long-term protection in storage, we use encapsulation, not lamination. 6. Do the minimum required to stabilize the material and extend its lifespan. We are not trying to return an item to brand new condition, which would negate some of the history of the document. Here are some of the tools we'll be using in this video: a spatula, forceps or tweezers, utility knife, and the tape removal tool. Tape removal tools sold in the conservation supply catalogs are rather expensive. This one was put together using a spatula tip that was bought from a conservation supply catalog, and then adding that onto just a normal soldering iron. Control was purchased in a hobby shop. It's the sort that we use for model trains. And finally, water removal repair tape. Thermoplast is a brand name. It's just an example. It's probably not the only one that's made. We'll start off with tape removal using the heat removal tool. We want to start with the low setting so as not to scorch the paper. Use the lowest heat that will effectively remove the tape. We'll start by warming the tape up. Be careful not to touch any of the metal parts of the tape removal tool. They all get really hot. Checking for where the start of the tape is. If the tape is transparent, it'd be sometimes difficult to tell where the end is. We'll start with a low heat and maybe turn it up notch by notch as needed. Then using the spatula, we get under the end of the tape. I prefer not to use a sharp tool for this. The spatula has a fairly blunt blade because we don't want to cut into the paper. You can see the tape beginning to come loose now. And we'll follow along with the heating tool on top of the tape as the spatula picks it up off the paper. to be very careful not to scrape some of this paper surface off with the tape. You take your time, don't rush it. It'll come up a little bit at a time. Just turned the heat up one notch on the tool. Sometimes I'll try using the tweezers, the forceps, to pull the tape. In this case, the tape was kind of gummy in consistency and this forceps didn't work very well. With some older hard tapes, you can grab the tape and pull it. In this one, we're switching back to the spatula. This document, by the way, is a photocopy. It's not an actual historic archival document. This is just for practice and demonstration. Okay, we've got the tape off. Here's another shot of the last inch or so. Next, we're going to remove a piece of tape using solvent. For this, we will use BM&P naphtha. We can also use mineral spirits, petroleum naphtha, even lighter fluid will work just fine for this. They're not terribly aggressive solvents, so they're not likely to pick up the ink off the document, but first we want to test in a small corner. See, there's no ink on the swab. We want to be sure and use pure cotton swabs with no additional substances added to them. The conservation supply catalogs sell very nice ones, but these are more expensive, and a plain cotton swab works just fine. So I let the solvent soak into the paper and get under the edges of the tape. I'm prodding around with the spatula to see if the tape's coming up yet. I'm going to use the utility knife briefly to get the front edge of the tape going. want to be really careful with the knife and not cut into the paper or scrape off some of the surface. We've got just the front edge of the tape started. You can also put some solvent on the back of the paper so that it will soak through from behind and help to loosen the tape. Okay, I've got the tape started, so now I'm going to switch to the forceps. And it looks like I'll be able to just pull the tape off in one piece. Mineral spirits or naphtha can also be useful for removing the sticky residue that's left after removing tape with a heat removal tool. These solvents are flammable, so be very careful with them. Use them with good ventilation. Mineral spirits doesn't produce a lot of vapor, but it's not especially good for you. We're going to do a second piece of tape, this time using pure acetone. Now, acetone is a much more aggressive solvent, so we'll want to test this carefully. And we can see that there is ink on the swab, so I'm not going to go any further with the acetone. Now that we've removed the old yellow or brittle so-called Scotch tape, it may not be necessary to repair this tear if we're going to encapsulate the document. It will be protected from handling. If we want to repair the tear, normally on a single-sided document we would do it on the back side so it didn't show. If you have print on both sides though, the repair tape is quite transparent. It's still visible, but it doesn't show too badly. So I'm going to repair this on the front side to show the transparency of the tape. This Filmoplast tape has kind of a tricky dispenser, but once you get a piece out, you can overlap the end, overlap the edge a bit there. And using a straight edge and a utility knife, you can trim it down to an exact fit. And just for good measure, I'll press it down and smooth it out with my bone folder. For more instructional videos and for information about the National AA Archives Workshop, visit our website at www.NAAAW.org. There's also a lot of good information on the General Services Office Archives webpage at www.aa.org. Thanks for viewing.